I was a child, but I did not feel like one. While other kids laughed and played outside, I learned how to stay quiet. I learned how to watch people's faces. I learned how to listen for footsteps and changes in voices. I learned these things before I learned how to dream. People often said I was mature for my age. They smiled when they said it, like it was a compliment. I smiled back, but inside, I did not know what that word really meant. I only knew that I was tired. Tired in a way children should not be. I grew up in a house where silence spoke louder than words. Sometimes love was there. Sometimes it disappeared without warning. I never knew which version of the day I would get. So I became careful. I became small. I became strong too early. I remember waking up in the morning and feeling heavy. Not sleepy heavy, like my heart carried a bag filled with worries. I worried about things children should not worry about. Money, anger, sadness, keeping peace, being good enough. I learned to help before anyone asked. I learned to say it's okay even when it wasn't. I learned to swallow my feelings so others could breathe easier. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that I was allowed to cry. At school, teachers praised me. Very responsible, they said. Always understands. I nodded and did my work quietly. I did not cause trouble. I did not ask for much. I did not ask for help. At night, when the world finally slowed down, I felt everything I pushed away during the day. Fear crept in softly. Sadness sat beside me like an old friend. I stared at the ceiling and wondered why growing up felt like surviving instead of becoming. I watched other children complain about small things. Toys, games, boredom. I felt jealous, but I also felt different. Like I was standing on the other side of a glass wall. I could see childhood, but I could not touch it. No one told me that growing up too fast steals something precious. No one warned me that when you skip being a child, you pay the price later. I did not know that one day I would miss the innocence I never fully had. I thought being strong meant never breaking. I thought being useful meant being loved. I thought silence was safety. I did not know yet that strength can be gentle, that love should not hurt, that children are not meant to carry adult pain. Back then, I only knew one thing. I had to grow up fast, because there was no other choice. As I grew older, people expected more from me, not because I asked for it, but because I always handled things quietly. When someone needed help, I was there. When something went wrong, I tried to fix it. When emotions filled the room, I became the calm one. Inside, I was still a child, but the world did not see that. The world saw someone reliable, someone strong, someone who could carry weight without complaining. I learned how to hide my feelings well. I smiled when I was tired. I nodded when I was confused. I stayed quiet when I was hurt. I thought this was normal. I thought everyone lived this way. I did not know how to say no. Saying no felt dangerous. It felt like I would disappoint someone, and disappointing people felt like losing love. So I kept saying yes, even when my heart was screaming no. I watched my friends make mistakes freely. They cried loudly. They got angry. They broke down and were comforted. I wondered how they could be so open. I wondered why it felt unsafe for me to do the same. Sometimes adults told me their problems. They talked as if I was one of them. I listened carefully and gave advice I learned from pain, not age. They thanked me, but no one asked how I was doing. I became good at understanding others. I could feel sadness in a room without words. I could sense tension before it exploded. I learned to protect people, even when no one protected me. But something inside me slowly disappeared. I stopped knowing what I liked. I stopped knowing what I wanted. My needs always came last. If there was space left after everyone else, maybe then I could exist. At night, I felt empty. Not sad exactly, just hollow. Like a cup that had been poured out too many times and never refilled. I told myself to be grateful. Others had it worse. That thought kept me silent. I believed growing up meant losing parts of yourself. I believed pain was a normal price for love. I believed being needed was the same as being valued. I did not realize that I was building walls instead of boundaries. I thought walls kept me safe, but they also kept me lonely. I wanted closeness, but I feared depending on anyone. Sometimes I wished someone would notice. Someone would say, "You don't have to be strong all the time." But no one did, and I didn't know how to ask. So I kept going, day by day, doing what was expected, carrying what was heavy, smiling when it hurt. I grew older, But I did not feel older. I felt worn. And deep inside, a small voice whispered a truth I was afraid to face. Growing up too fast didn't make me stronger. It just taught me how to survive. One day, I realized something was wrong. It was not one big moment. It was many small moments coming together. I felt tired all the time. Even when I rested, I felt heavy. My smile felt practiced, not real. I started to feel angry for no clear reason. Small things hurt more than they should. Words stayed in my mind longer. I felt guilty for feeling this way, like I was being ungrateful. I asked myself, why am I like this? But I did not have an answer. People still saw me as strong. They still came to me with their problems. They still expected me to understand. I wanted to help, but I felt empty inside. Sometimes I felt like I was living on autopilot. Wake up, do what is needed, go to sleep, repeat. Days passed, but I was not really there. I noticed I did not know how to relax. When things were calm, I felt uneasy. Silence made me nervous. Peace felt unfamiliar. My body stayed alert, like danger was always close. I realized I never learned how to be soft. I never learned how to ask for comfort. I never learned how to rest without guilt. I never learned how to depend on someone without fear. When something good happened, I waited for it to end. When someone was kind, I wondered what they wanted. Trust did not come easily to me. One evening, I looked at myself in the mirror and felt strange. I saw someone older than their age, someone holding too much, someone who forgot how to be a child. That was the first time I felt grief for myself. I mourned the laughter I didn't have, the care I didn't receive, the safety I didn't feel. I cried quietly, not because I was weak, but because I finally allowed myself to feel. It scared me at first. Feeling felt dangerous, but it also felt honest. I began to understand that growing up too fast does not disappear. It stays in your body, in your thoughts, in the way you love and protect yourself. I saw how I avoided asking for help, how I pushed people away while wanting them close, how I stayed strong even when I was breaking. I was not broken. I was tired. Tired of holding everything alone. Tired of being the strong one. Tired of surviving instead of living. That night, I made a quiet promise to myself. Not a big one, just a small, gentle promise. I said, I will try to be kinder to myself. I didn't know how yet, but for the first time, I wanted to learn, and that was the beginning of something new. Being kind to myself was harder than I thought. I was used to being patient with others, not with me. When I felt tired, I told myself to keep going. When I felt sad, I told myself to be strong. That voice in my head sounded familiar. It was the voice I learned growing up. But this time, I tried something different. When I felt overwhelmed, I stopped and breathed. When I felt like crying, I allowed a few tears to fall. It felt strange, like learning a new language. I started noticing my feelings instead of pushing them away. Some days, I felt angry. Some days, I felt scared. Some days, I felt nothing at all, and I learned that all of it was okay. I learned to rest without explaining myself. Rest was not laziness, it was care. I reminded myself of this often. Slowly, I practiced saying no. At first, my voice shook. I felt guilty. I worried people would leave. Some did not like it. But something surprising happened. I felt lighter. Not everyone understood my changes. Some people missed the old me, the one who never complained, never asked, never stopped giving. But I was learning that love should not cost me my peace. I began to set small boundaries. I did not answer every call. I did not fix every problem. I did not carry every emotion that entered the room. It felt uncomfortable, but also freeing. I realized that growing up too fast made me believe my worth came from what I could do for others. Now, I was learning that my worth existed even when I did nothing. There were days I slipped back into old habits. Days I felt weak for needing rest. Days I felt scared to speak up. Healing was not a straight line, but I was no longer unaware. I talked to people I trusted. I shared parts of my story slowly. Being seen felt scary, but it also felt warm. I learned that not everyone would use my vulnerability against me. I started doing small things I missed as a child. Listening to music without purpose. Laughing without guilt. Enjoying quiet moments. These moments did not erase the past, but they softened it. I learned that I did not need to be strong all the time. Strength could look like asking for help. Strength could look like rest. Strength could look like saying, I can't do this today. For the first time, I was not just surviving. I was learning how to live. And even though I grew up too fast, I realized something important. It was never too late to grow gently. Today, I understand myself better. I understand why I became quiet, why I became strong too early, why I learned to survive instead of feel. It was never because I was weak. It was because I did what I had to do. Growing up too fast was not a choice. It was a response. I no longer blame my younger self. I thank them. That child protected me in the only way they knew how. They carried heavy things so I could still stand today. Now, it is my turn to protect that child. I speak to myself with kindness. I allow mistakes. I allow rest. I allow joy without guilt. These things once felt impossible. Now, they feel like healing. Some scars remain. I still get scared sometimes. I still feel responsible when things go wrong. I still struggle to ask for help. But now, I notice it. And noticing is power. I have learned that being strong does not mean being alone. Being brave does not mean feeling nothing. And love does not mean losing yourself. I surround myself with people who respect my boundaries. People who listen. People who do not need me to suffer to feel cared for. I am learning how to play again. How to dream. How to rest without fear. These are quiet victories, but they matter. When I see children now, I hope they are safe. I hope they are free to be loud, messy, emotional, and loved. I hope they do not grow up too fast like I did. And when I meet adults who grew up too fast, I recognize them. In their tired eyes, in their gentle hearts, in the way they carry others so easily. To anyone who feels this story in their bones, know this. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are healing. Growing up too fast may have shaped you, but it does not define you. You still deserve softness. You still deserve care. You still deserve a life that feels safe. And now, finally, I choose to grow. Not fast, but whole.